Now, the story of politics and the upcoming election has dominated the past year and will dominate the new one, a year that will alter Nigeria, making it either more stable and secure or less so. As we head into February, the ramifications of that election will continue to be felt well beyond the ballot itself, even as soaring food and energy costs continue to fuel high rates of inflation, and the unity of this country continues to be an issue amid the fractured relationships between its constituent parts, and as insecurity continues to roil and threaten the centre. So given all this, what might the year ahead bring? Who might be favoured by good results in this election? And what might stymie the ambitions of even the best intending new leader? Well, tonight we have one of Nigeria's best psephologists to give us her latest assessment of what the next month and the months after that might have in store for Nigeria. Idayat Hassan is the director of the respected think tank, the Center for Democracy and Development, and she joins me now in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Oh, thank you very much.
And Happy New Year to you.
Oh, wishing you the best.
Same to you. So let's focus on the upcoming election for a moment. It's now barely a month away. What's at stake here as far as you can see? And have things changed one way or another in these first few days of the new year?
I think it's a very interesting new year because this is our elections and it's one of the most important elections the whole world is actually looking up to. Really, it's as important as the US elections or even the British elections itself. And a lot has actually changed. I think in the last couple of months there has actually been gains, and as well as the gains, whatever the opposite of it we have also witnessed. We've seen candidates lose some of their followers. We have seen people also gaining more as they crisscross different parts of the country, speaking and canvassing for votes on one hand. I think that's quite interesting. The insecurity, which we will go on to, has continued to increase, but in other parts of the country, like the Northwest, we are also seeing that the military is actually trying to make inroads and reduce the level of violence in that part of the country. Hopefully, maybe it might be better ahead of the elections. But the cleavages are getting widened. We are getting more and more fractured, and I think this time around, the fracturing is not just on the identity that we've always looked at as ethnic and religious, but you have a third one, which is the generational one coming up. So along these three lines, you are finding more and more fracturing when you look at how people are going to vote in these elections. But most importantly, what the outcome of the elections will also presuppose to these three important categories as well. So the losses, but there is a lot of excitement, and everybody is actually looking up to the next 6 weeks to find out who will, 6-7 weeks, who will actually be the president of Nigeria.
Yeah, there's something exciting about that, isn't it?
It is very, very exciting that come May 29th, we are going to have a new president. We are going to have like 24 unbroken run of democracy, the 7th elections itself, and the longest when you look at it in all of 4 of Nigeria's republic. You know, we've never gotten to 24 years. So it would, while our democracy is not perfect, it's challenged when you look at all the things we are talking about in terms of economy, in terms of security, in terms of even the fracturing. But I'll tell you that as a democracy watcher, it is exciting. It is inspiring that we have been able to get to these 24 years, and we are praying that it actually holds.
Absolutely. And how close is the race at this stage? I mean, what can the APC, for instance, what is it going to have to do to hold on to power in a situation where some polls are scoring them as third or second?
I think one and very important issue to highlight is polling. Polling is very good. It gives an indication of who actually emerges the winner, but it is not absolute, really. It's just an indication. And it changes. In fact, in Nigeria, we say that 24 hours is too long in the life of politics, let alone we are like 2 months into the election. And some of these polls that are being conducted also, this should be an opportunity. I hope my senior brother there, Waziri Adio, has uttered a very powerful point when it comes to some of this polling. We need to talk to it. The methodologies of some of the polls are also questionable. The categories that are selected for the polls remain in question. If you go and select people between the age of 18 to 35 and you pose a question to them on who they will vote for, you can expect who they will say they will vote for. But again, if you match that with the electoral arithmetic of Nigeria and historically, you also find that most of those categories do not even come out to vote, even though we are expecting that these forthcoming elections will be different, having more than 70% of young people as the new registered voters. What people define as urban and rural also comes into question with this polling. If you take 45 minutes away from a capital city like Abuja and you say that is rural, it becomes questionable because most of them work in Abuja. So
that's a good point.
You know, so most of these are the challenges that is coming with this polling that we are actually experiencing. And when you take a cue from the US elections itself, that after the polls of 2016, they decided to, some like Gallup were like, should we even be polling when it comes to elections? What would be the strategy to polls, and how much faith should we put in polls? So because of the toxic nature of these elections, which should be likened to the 2016 US elections and the Brexit, we should be very careful as calling a polls as an indicator of who will actually emerge. Our emphasis should really be on the state of play. What is the ground game of these parties and how it has actually played out historically, and we can now balance it with the polls. It shouldn't be one.
Yes, I see the point you're making. But does it seem to you, though, as if this time around many voters are voting for people, not parties? So you find people saying they'll vote across parties for a presidential candidate from one party, a governor from another, a senator from yet another. Is that how you sort of see it?
Yes, actually we'll be releasing a report which we call the change of guard. And that is one thing that came out strongly, that in these elections, emphasis is really on individual. But it also depends on the part of state of the country you are actually talking really about. So while people are voting on individuals, historically some people have voted a particular party for quite a long time. So you go to Borno, Yobe, Zamfara, for instance, it has never flipped since 1999. They have voted one way, which has been ANPP, ANPP, and of course APC now. And even the APP we are talking about, with the alliance with ADAPP in 1999, they voted that way for their presidency. And you take a cue again and you go back and you see that the same will work for GNPP in Borno, Yobe, and those areas that they've always said they played progressive politics, and that has been the way since 1999. So some will continue to vote that way, but many will vote for individual. And when we talk about people voting for individual, we should also put it in context that at times it's not even the candidate themselves. This is what the politicians call the structure. So in the elections, they might basically not be voting for the candidate, but they are voting for the social capital and Idayat, who lives in this Hilton has got, and they are voting for the candidate based on that. So the electoral geography or the mathematics, arithmetic of Nigeria is very, very varied. But what we can say is this time around, people are voting based on some candidate because there has been upset. And it's not just at the national level. The same is also coming up at the state level. Take Plateau State as an example. Go and look at Rivers. You see people talking about the SDP candidate, not just the PDP candidate, even having a upper hand. And that comes across the country. So hopefully by the time we come to the elections, the end of the first elections, we will not just be seeing what we are projecting as an ethnic vote, but we would be seeing new parties actually occupying more positions due to the people they are fielded, which is a factor, the down ballot. So what is the quality of the down ballot will also affect the win, either in the presidential elections, but will also make it much more beautiful in looking, like when you have like 6 parties as against the 2 dominant parties we have previously known in the country.
So in that context then, and this very interesting analysis that you've given, where do you place the other front-runner candidates? I mean, we talked a little bit about the APC, although we didn't talk about their candidate. But where do you see the candidates standing in this race at this stage? And has that apple cart been upset by any other new entrants from the original 4 that we've been talking about all along?
Nobody has upset the entrants. Of course, the LP candidate we know will be taking a lot of votes from the PDP candidates in their stronghold of the Southeast and the South-South, which historically have voted for PDP. If you take Rivers as an example, in the 2015 and the 2019 elections, 2015, 90% of the votes of PDP actually emerged from Rivers. They got like, I think maybe 92, around 92 of the total vote cast was for PDP. In 2019, it became like 70-something%. You can see that is dwindled. In 2023, that will remain questionable. Like, will they be able to win the state? And if they win the state, will they win in such a margin? And the same will play across the South-South and the Southeast and the North-Central itself. Now, what is in contest will be the Northwest, really, which is the traditional home of the APC, particularly in the last 2 elections, 2015 and 2019, and where they have actually gotten the majority of their votes. Like, if I had my PowerPoint here, you will find that they were winning at the rate of 72, 70-something%. It was only in Kaduna that they eventually did not get up to that percentage, maybe around 50-something in Kaduna in 2019. Will they be able to reach such, particularly as this politics of our own is beginning to gain ground in the Northwest? Now, the Northwest is very important as a battleground because the Northwest has the highest voter turnout in all the previous elections. So while we had the national average of like 35% in 2019, the Northwest had 43.5% turnout, let's say 44% turnout in the 2019 elections. Will they be able to get that turnout? Is one, because of the insecurity in some parts of the state. Some of the states there, will they be able to get the turnout? Then will APC be able to win big the way they won in the previous election? So it's winning big. It's not winning this time. It's the winning big beyond the spread that will happen. So Gombe is still an example. So you take Gombe now, you see that of course APC would do very well in Gombe, but it won like 72% for Buhari in 2019. That is not certain because of the Christian population. Aside from the PDP candidate, the Labour Party candidate will get some votes from the Christian population in Gombe. Not how big it is, but the fact that it's able to get sizable numbers of votes. But what our focus will be is which states will likely flip, aside from all these historical states. And that is why I'm saying you wait till we officially, then we can put all the slides and you can see how the states have won with each passing elections, the state who won the state, and the state President Muhammadu Buhari was able to flip in 2015 will in 2015 retain some in 2019, but you will find that the Adamawa he flipped in 2015, he lost it in the 2019 elections because of course former Vice President Atiku Abubakar was vying in that election. So which will be up for grab? Then who is going to inherit this President Buhari's 12 million votes, the beneficiary of these votes, which is not taken? And it's not a certainty for a host of reasons. Not just because of who the candidates are. Some of the people in the Northwest, again, they are used to President Buhari's austere nature. He is not a rich, he identifies very well with the Talakawas. So who out of these two front-line candidates of APC and PDP, I don't know, they don't look like Talakawas to the people. And that will also do have some...
What about the NNPP?
NNPP will certainly be doing well, and they shouldn't be taken to be an underdog, because understanding the Kwakwansia movement is not just present in the Northwest as people lead us to believe. In Edo, they have their followings with their red cap. They may not win and win like maybe the 1 million or 400,000, but it doesn't mean that they wouldn't get sizable votes in places like Edo State, even in Lagos State, in the Alabaragos area, and all this. And in the north, in parts of Kaduna, they are eating into the votes, like our research is telling us, beyond Kano, Jigawa, even the Gombe. And the more stronger their down ballot is, and I think we should point to the fact that they have one of the strongest down ballots, not just numbers of candidates, which they are fielding second after PDP in these elections, but they do have some very strong down ballots. So these down ballots will help when you start looking at the representation at the National Assembly and their ability to garner some votes for their presidential candidate. While the LP will be the major beneficiary of an increased turnout of the young people in this election. So this over 7 million new registered voters. So assuming and hopefully they actually come out to vote for the LP, it will be beneficial. But at this point, calling a win will be very, very difficult. But what we can say is that these candidates are working extremely hard to get their vote. In fact, I would say compared to 2019, we are seeing people really work hard, going into the nooks and crannies of the country, not just campaigning. You've seen that yesterday Peter Obi was on another platform talking. This morning he was another platform reaching out to the people. You see, since last week, the APC candidate has been meeting from Kano to Ondo to Edo. They've traversed different parts of the country. We have seen NNPP now unveil its own mission. The PDP too is going alongside, not just their candidates, and beyond what we are seeing their candidates do, we are also seeing that their spokesperson, their down ballots are also organizing at every level. So I think we should start looking more at the down ballot, because the elections are also very critical. In these elections, you wouldn't say that, oh, I'm now going to, I would actually be, I'll be campaigning for myself. I would not campaign for my candidates, because in some areas it's very difficult. You end up confusing them. Then it will also have implication for the next elections, which is the governorship elections. And people have stakes. I think the stakes are very, very high, and people are taking their stakes extremely serious.
Very, very interesting. We've got just a couple of minutes before we have to go, and you talked about this new demographic that's joined the sort of the electoral process. So let's talk about the process. Do you have concerns about the collection of PVCs? Because I mean, there seems to be a lot of issues around that, both from INEC, who some say is not making the PVCs available, and a lot of people who are said not to be collecting their PVCs.
I think it's one is from the point of view of the people as Nigerian, and as a Nigerian myself, at times we leave things to last minute. So we will expect lots of people to turn out maybe like 2 or 3 days to the end of the collection process to start jostling for their PVC. Now, when it comes to the INEC one, I think part of the challenge was keeping this PVC at the local government level, which has now been decentralized to the ward level, and all the addresses of the ward level have been shared. So we will now have to wait for this week to see how that procedure goes before we can give a a pass mark or otherwise on what exactly they are doing.
So briefly, given all that you've told us, do you believe that Nigeria will have a free and fair election in just over a month from now?
I do definitely believe that these elections will depend on us. The credibility or otherwise will not just be dependent on INEC as the body. It will be dependent on us as Nigerians who do know that our vote do have consequences. I think we have learned that in this last few electoral cycles. So it's not just about going out to cast our votes that really matters, but the maintenance of peace and law and order during that elections will also be dependent on us, because most of the things we are even seeing goes beyond the prevailing insecurity to that of political violence, which is actually gaining up a higher hand. So it's going to be a stakeholders affair, and I'm sure that as Nigerians, we are, as usual, up to the task.
Idayat, thank you very much indeed. Idayat Hassan is the director of the respected think tank, the Center for Democracy and Development. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.